Curtis Boehmer is a speech and language pathologist in the Huron Intermediate School District working with students in Harbor Beach, Michigan. As a 30-year veteran of helping students in the district, he decided to see if he could find any new brain research to help him. His internet search led him to BrainWare Safari. He was intrigued but skeptical, since he had never seen anything that could improve cognitive skills so dramatically in such a short period of time. The data from Learning Enhancement Corporation's initial study was enough to convince him and the district to test the program for themselves.
Really believe everything you read on the internet, because anybody can type something up and put it out there. So we looked at it and said, we have never, and all of us that looked at it had the same comment, we've never seen anything that would change cognitive skill levels so dramatically in 3 short months. Because part of my training and services have been with severely cognitively impaired and moderately cognitively impaired students in our county. And I just thought, this is absolutely amazing. But we said, you know, if it's there, they must be willing to put their reputation on it. And so what we decided to do was to run a 10-student study.
The district asked teachers to nominate students who might benefit from developing their cognitive skills and then randomly chose 10 students from 2nd through 8th grades. The students used BrainWare Safari after school for 12 weeks and were tested before and after with the same Woodcock-Johnson tests used in LEC's study. The students experienced an average improvement of over 3 years in intellectual development, and each and every student improved. The results matched LEC's original research. Not only did the results show in the cognitive testing, but teachers started to see changes as well.
And so when I would chat with the teachers every single week, not every day, but every week, about their students in BrainWare, and saying, how's school coming? Well, you know, they're still doing the same thing. I'm not seeing anything different. And I got that comment from one teacher on a Monday, and it was about 6 or 7 weeks into BrainWare, and she actually on Tuesday came to me, and I think that my question had just bugged her enough, because she gave me the same answer she'd given me for the last previous weeks. She actually went home that night and sat down and looked at how that student was doing in class. And she came to me and she said, you know what, Curtis, I haven't even noticed, but his whole performance is just slowly rising. And it's gradual. There weren't giant leaps in performance in the classroom over those first 6 or 7 weeks, but they were slowly rising, and it was starting to increase at that point in time. And she was just absolutely floored. She didn't think that, because she wasn't doing anything different. And so she was one that said, I need to come in and see what's going on, what you're doing, so I can do it in the classroom. And so she came in and she said, I can't do this. And I said, you're right, you can't, and you shouldn't have to do this in the classroom. I said, this is something that because we're at the point in our lives with technology, that technology can do because we couldn't do it before.
The district was so pleased with the results on the cognitive tests and with the changes they were seeing in daily academic performance and classroom behavior that they decided to try BrainWare Safari with some older students.
In fact, that first spring, we had a student, high-performing student in the district, and he had taken his ACTs twice and had scored in the low to mid-30s on all of his scores except for his reading score, which the first time was a 22 and second time was a 21. And so the superintendent called me in and said, you know, we've got this kid and we can't figure out where we have failed him. And that's the impression, and that is the attitude that Harbor Beach has towards all of their kids. If they're not performing where they should be, then what have we done that has failed them? What can we do to correct our errors, not their errors? Because it's our fault that they're not performing where they should be. He said, do you think BrainWare will do some good? I said, you know what? I don't know. I said, I've not seen it with high school kids. And he was really our first older, he was 17-year-old using it. So we did a pre and post test on him. We gave him BrainWare. He did it on his own. It was during the last 2 weeks of school. So he had to come into school. He agreed to come into school 4 days a week for the next 10 weeks or until he got it done after school was out, because they don't have high-speed internet at their home. And he did, and when he got done, he called me, and I came in and we post-tested him, and I was really disappointed. with the results, because the results were practically identical. There was no statistical change in the pre and post testing. And I looked at Ron and I said, you know, Ron, I don't think BrainWare worked with this kid. So he went off and took his ACT test for the third time. And his score in reading went from 21 to 30. And that's just unheard of. And it was a 9-point gain, and the only thing that happened in there was BrainWare. And I think that what happened with this student was his cognitive skills were all there, and they were all compartmentalized, just like you guys have said we teach. We teach in compartments. And what BrainWare did for this kid was they took them and blended them together so that they could communicate to each other and learned how to communicate. And I will tell you that the same thing happened this year, because Harbor Beach uses the ACT test as one of the measures for determining class rank. And they use a formula, I don't know what it is, and it's not really relevant. But their valedictorian this year scored in the mid to high 30s, in the mid 30s on her ACT scores, except for in the reading area. And so they gave her BrainWare. And she went from a 28 to a 34 when she retook her ACT test, which again is a 6-point gain, and that's just something you don't really see in ACTs very often. And so we're fully, we're 100% believers that not only will it boost individual cognitive skills, but it takes those kids that are already smart and makes it so that their brain just communicates so much more efficiently.